Um, I I don't know how to tell you this story without telling you where I worked. Okay, so I worked in a place that I worked in a place that had body parts in it that wasn't a hospital. And one time, well, over time, we had this very long hallway, and we would see, like, out of the corner of your eye, you know how you see like dark motion or whatever. It happened from time to time. We made jokes about it. Haha, it's a ghost, whatever. It was often going to the bathroom or like at the end of the hall, you know? So you would be walking down the hall and you would see, you think, someone go into the bathroom, but obviously when you go in there, there's no one in there. Or you would be coming from one end of the building to the other. It's a very long hallway, and you would think you saw someone sort of go out the door but at the other end, but there was no one there, right? So it was this common joke. One time I was in one side of the building after we had closed, because I was on call. I'm trying to remember why I was there. So I was on call. It had this backup generator, right? So when the power went out, the generator would come on because there were things that needed to be constantly frozen or refrigerated or whatever, being pieces of people. So the power had gone out. I was on call. I had to come in to make sure that the generator was working, because if the generator goes out, it's all lost, and like it's a terrible thing, right? So I came in and I was just there I did a round of checks. I made sure everything was correct, and I was on the other side of the building, and when the generator's on, not all the lights are on, right? So the hallway was dark, and I'm not afraid of ghosts. It doesn't matter to me. But I walked down the hallway like, oh, this is spooky, whatever, right? And so I went down to the other side of the building. I went through the door that's there into a larger space. And I thought I heard someone. And like, it couldn't have been someone, right? Like, I'm there alone. It's way after hours. It's dark, right? I'm like, oh, haha, the brain often creates this noise that you make a pattern into. Oh, it sounded like a footstep, right? So I was like, that's weird. Footsteps, right? And it's sort of no, I won't tell you. There were big walls going throughout this big room. They didn't go all the way to the top, right? So it's kind of like a maze. So I moved down, and obviously there's no one there, but if something had fallen or whatever, I needed to check, right? So I explored this area, and there was nothing there, and I was like, okay, well, let me walk over to the other side of the building and make sure everything's cool over there. Maybe it echoed or something and I didn't hear it. So instead of going down the hallway, I moved from one side of the building to the other through a big door. And then it's another big space that's also like a maze, and at the far side of it is these gigantic refrigerators, the kind that you would put large amounts of food in or whatever at a restaurant, right? But they were there to keep the items preserved, right? And I swear I heard it again, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm in a scary movie. Like, I'm still making the joke. Like, oh, this is so funny. And it's very maze like, and there's a bunch of walls in the way and stuff. And I remember coming around the corner from this side, actually. Oh wait, it's wrong on the screen. So I came around the corner. It's one fridge, and then there's a recessed freezer. So I walked past the fridge just to make sure that the fans are on and everything's good, right? And when I came to the freezer, which held the like worst stuff, I saw somebody in the freezer, like a dark figure, definitely a person. It had this window like this big, and I swear there was a person right there. And I was like, huh. And I did the thing that everyone does in movies. I looked around. I don't know why, but I was like, huh, what the? Is this a joke? You know, kind of thing? And it wasn't there when I turned back, and I was like, okay. And again, not afraid of anything, really, very stupid. I walked over to the freezer and I looked inside, and there was nobody in there. And I opened the door, and it's very loud and very heavy. There's no way someone could have opened it, gone out, and closed it in the amount of time. There's no way it wouldn't have made any noise. Like, I saw somebody in a freezer full of body parts. And I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. And then I was like, what do I do? I don't know. So I just left. I was like, well, I guess I'm going to go. I obviously didn't die. I didn't get hurt. Nothing happened to me, but I definitely saw that junk. Ta-da. Unless you meant ghost stories as in like stories from Janupi, and then I definitely failed. But there you go. And this is just for you. I'm gonna cut it out of the interview, obviously, because the interview's over. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. More. Okay. Let's see. I saw a ghost one time in the residence hall that I lived in. As you know, there are residence halls that have reports of ghosts all the time. I lived in one. I could tell you all the details about this. There's no job related stuff. So I went to a school called Stephen F. Austin State University. I stayed in a residence hall called Mays Hall. It is reported to have been a hospital. The way it's built is like two L's. There's a building here and a building here, and they're connected by a little inner area. So this is a male hall, and this is a female hall, right? So I lived in the Mays Hall, which is over here. It's all male. And it was reported that because it had the higher section, that the what are they called? Like, what the heck? More in-depth surgeries and stuff were performed up there. Freaking Discord, man. So I lived in this hall that was reported to be a hospital, and so the surgeries are done at the top, the morgue is at the bottom, right, because it had a basement, and then there was a gigantic elevator that you couldn't go into. It was closed down, very dangerous. We never even saw the elevator ever inside. It was very blocked off, but it was huge. It was like the biggest opening, so it definitely lended credence to the fact that it might be have been a hospital. There's no record of it being a hospital, but I mean, whatever. It's a good story, right? So I'm living there. I lived on the second floor. First floor was obviously like intake, general stuff. Second floor was supposed to have been more like long-term kind of patients. Like you kind of live there over time. And then the hospital was also co-ed, right? So from my door, I had a very good placement and also a bad placement. I was right at the edge. You would come up the stairs, and then she like, no, not she, I'm reading my freaking so you come up and I was jumping ahead. So you come up the stairs because you can't get in the elevator. You go forward, there's a bathroom right here, and then the long hallway right here, and my room was right there. And we often had visitors. It was a very cool experience. It's something that like you can't really create again, because we would just leave the door unlocked and literally people would walk in, come hang out, and leave whenever they needed to. It was very cool and very chill. It was easy to get to us. And it was great placement for the bathroom and everything. And I remember one night, I heard a noise very late at night, and I was like, oh, someone must be up. It was like, I don't know, 2 or something. I was up all the time, playing video games and stuff. So I remember hearing a noise, and I was like, oh, well, someone must be up. I'm going to go pee. So I was leaving to go to the bathroom, and I thought it was like a muffled, like, or like something similar to that, like, but female. And I was like, that's weird. Someone must have snuck in a girl, like, cause it's all male. Okay, cause I'm a freshman. Ew, interesting, right? And I opened the door and I came out to go to the bathroom, which is this way, but I happened to look this way, and there was a girl, like, at the very end of the hall, bent over into herself, hands around her knees, sort of, or arms around her knees, hands over her head, crying is what it looked like. And I was like, oh, dang, like, something must have happened. What do I do? And then I turned to go to the bathroom, because I was like, oh, I mean, maybe she broke up with someone. Maybe something bad happened. Like, I had all these thoughts, so I like turned to go to the bathroom, and I was like, no, I probably can't let that go. Like, that's wrong. So I turned back to be like, hey, what's going on? And she wasn't there anymore, like, gone. No, again, no sound of door, no nothing. And I was like, oh, geez. And then I started telling people about it, and they're like, oh yeah, it's a common occurrence that people hear a girl crying in our hall, or they see a girl wandering the halls, which is funny because, people would sneak in women all the time. But in this instance, like, she couldn't have gone anywhere. She was just there, and then she was gone. It was crazy. So I have that experience, right? And then later we move up into the 4th floor. We had it in good with the people who ran it. And so we moved into the 4th floor, which is called the penthouse. Specifically our room. It's literally the biggest room on campus, biggest single room anyway. So we had all this space. It was very, very cool. And we hung out there a lot. It was less people coming in all the time. It was more quiet up there, very chill. And I, again, would be up late or whatever, but actually in the second instance, it wasn't late. Not super late anyway. I was going to class. Oh yeah, it was during the day. So I was going to class, and okay, yeah, I got it. So I was going to class, and I left, and my roommate said, okay, cool, I'll see you later. I'm gonna go to class later also. And I was like, all right, cool. We obviously didn't have the same schedule. That's not how it works. So I leave, I go to class. I got food, and then I came back, and I heard someone say something in the room. It was a female voice, and I heard someone as I came up out of the stairs. I was walking. It was so big that it had its own little hallway off to the side, and I walked up to the door, and as I was walking that way, I heard a female voice, which is a little strange because my roommate was supposed to be in class. Also, my roommate was gay, so I was like, well, I mean, you could be friends with anyone, but this is a weird sort of occurrence. So I remember like standing at the door, and I had just heard her speak, and I was like, dang, do I go in? Like, should I knock? I don't think I need to knock. It's my room, right? We all know I'm coming back. I guess I'll just introduce myself, right? So I put my key in the door, I open the door, No one's in there. No TV on. No window open for bird noise. No nothing. Completely empty. 100%. And I was like, that is weird. I'm gonna go get food again. And I remember leaving. That time I was like, I'm not gonna mess with this. I'm gonna leave again. Because it was so different. It was in my room. Like, what could I do? So I left. Good times. That place was super scary. That's 2 ghosts for 1. Ta-da. Heck nah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I can go now? Cool. I'll tell you one more story because I'm proud of it. Because it was so haunted, our residence hall did this thing each Halloween where we ran a haunted house at the bottom floor. And what would happen is, again, it's shaped like an L, right? So you would enter here, and then there were all these rooms on either side that were like people who lived in those rooms, and then you would have the common area right here where people would come in, and then this whole side was actually a study sort of place. It was called the Brophy Center, and it's named after some guy who donated or something. I don't know. You know how it is, but it was designed to. It had required study hours, like. To live in the residence hall, you were required to clock in and actually study. And it was designed to not only help people, but also to be a very chill, very quiet spot, right? So it had the classic like big glass windows and rooms all the way down it, but nobody lived in them, okay? So every year we would have sorry, my bad. We would have a haunted house, and it was run by students. We would ask people to volunteer to be in it, and then all of the funds that were gained went into hosting events for our residence hall, right? I was vice president for a while, or I was treasurer for a while or something. I was vice president and then president. That actually went on to be one of the best jobs that I had, because after that I got into the campus level, and so I was the national communications coordinator for the Residence Hall Association of Stephen F. Austin State University, and that led me to a bunch of conferences and all sorts of stuff, hosting events. Like, apparently that's my job. Not that they were good, but anyway, in this specific instance, it almost always followed the same path through the haunted house. You would enter, and it would be a very dark hallway because the people on the first floor, deserve their privacy. And then it would enter sort of a very large open space where we had TV, and foosball or whatever, ping pong. But we would alter it. We would put up stuff and have a spooky scene there. And then you would go across the lobby into another big room, and then you would exit through the Brophy Center. And we had like sort of a series of events that you would witness, right? So the first hallway would always be like spooky noises because it was dark, and it would have like trash bag sort of tarps all the way down, so you couldn't see where you were going and stuff. And then the one we planned, I'm trying to remember what was in the big room. I think it was a dissection on a big table, and so you would come out of this sort of back and forth very dark hallway into someone cutting up a body laying on the floor, and they were actually like underneath, so you could see their head, and then it was like a fake body and all that junk. And the fake doctor would like invite you to be involved or whatever. And then from there you would go into the second large room. I think we had it set up with if this is the one I'm thinking of, I know we did it, but I don't remember if I planned or helped plan it or not. I wasn't the only one. But I think it was designed to have a car rush at you. So we put two very bright flashlights on a shopping cart, and then we weighted it down and we like ran it at people with an air horn. So like you would literally open the door and these two bright lights would be coming at you, you know. Yeah, it was pretty cool. So yeah, very House of Torment, right? Where you sort of walk around and look at the scene. Anyway, so there was that, and then you came around because it was difficult to be in the room after that scenario. And there was something else spooky. Oh, people would like reach out near you and stuff as you came around. And then you would exit and you would go to the Brophy Center. And then in the study rooms, it was a bunch of scenes, right? Like we had some guy strapped to a chair, right? Like the old wooden chair, and he had the thing on his head and the diodes and stuff. And you'd walk by and he'd get electrocuted and just start screaming, and like the lights would flick on and off and stuff. And, you know, there were just a bunch of them sort of down the hall. But we had... I can't remember what they're called, but the people who work for the campus as students, but they check people in and out at the front, you know, make sure if you need to get in touch with someone, you can leave a note there or whatever. They just run the front desk, right? One of them was this chick. Oh, I guess I won't say their name. Sure. This chick with very long black hair, like super razor straight, like very long black hair, and it was very long, and she was very thin and athletic, played like tennis or something, and relatively pale. And it was sort of maybe 2 or 3 years after The Ring had come out in the US, after Ringu and all that junk, or whatever that timeline is, right? So everybody knew what The Ring was, right? So we were like, oh, cool. Will you be in this for us? And she was like, yeah, sure. Why not? But the best part was she had two sisters, and one of them looked very similar, and was like a year younger. So she was like a junior. Oh, 2 years younger. She was a junior, and her sister had started, so she was a freshman. And we got them to both be the Ring girl from The Ring. And what happened was, you would go past this scene where the girl, one of them, would be crawling out of this TV, right? Like the TV's all static. We still had tube TVs, so it was all static, and she would be crawling forward out of it, which she couldn't obviously come out of it, but she was coming out of the stand underneath it, right? So it kind of looked right, and that was the only light in there. And then the second sister had the remote, and she was next to the window underneath, and she would turn off the TV and then slam up into people like that, right? So there's no way one could get to the other, but they look the same. It was the craziest thing. It was so good. They were so good at it, and it's freaked so many people out. And one group had this girl, you know how some people are really hyped or whatever, and they're like, oh, I don't want to go. They had like moved her forward, and she was like, I don't want to do this or whatever. And the second one turned off the thing and slammed into it, and we could hear her everywhere scream, "Ah!" right? Like the loudest scream. And she ran down the hall in this study room. You know, it's dark or whatever. There's all these events. She ran down the hall. She hit the water fountain on the side of the wall, slammed into it, ripped it off, and kept going, and didn't stop until she was gone. Okay. And so all the walkies start going off like, hey, we got a problem. You know, there's an issue. This just happened. Like everyone's getting this message. and the it had to be stopped. Like we had to get the power to that air, or not the power, the water turned off and stuff. It was all ripped out of the wall. Oh my gosh, it was so funny, but also terrifying for her. Like, honestly. But yeah, so funny. And yeah, I'm proud of all the work I put in there, and then the work that came after that. I think it was really legit. There was a guy at the end with a fake chainsaw that didn't have a blade that was supposed to be the scariest part, but apparently not. Although he did chase a lot of people through. And it was great because like the people at the beginning could hear the chainsaw and hear the screams and like see people run past and junk and be like, what the heck is happening? But yeah, that specific thing, yeah. Ripped it out of the wall. Cool. The end. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yep. I probably have more ghost stories, but I can't think of them. It's one of those things where like you don't really think about it, you know, until you're like talking about something else and you're like, oh yeah, I remember this happened. Yeah. Cool. My pleasure. I'm glad you enjoyed the interviews and the stories and everything that happened there within. I will have to read my mom's texts. She texted me. That's what the texts were. Cool. I don't really see anyone on. So yeah, I appreciate your time. I appreciate the time of the interviewees. I appreciate all the people who RP and all of that stuff. I am going to go. I feel like I'm late on my NaNoWriMo stuff, but I'll still probably try and work on it because I do want to work on it. I'm worried that I won't finish to a state that I like, but whatever. So expect story writing, novel writing in the future. It's not that glamorous or great, but it's a goal, right? And you should do your goals and stuff. So yeah, that's upcoming for November-ish. And maybe a day or two in there, I'll RP on the new server and stuff too. So yeah, I'm going to the outro now. Goodbye, good night. Have a wonderful whatever. I'm glad I moved the outro.
Have hearts. Have hearts.
Also, if you heard the freaking fire extinguisher beep or fire thing beep during the interview, it's not even in my house. I think it's in the house that's being built. I think it doesn't have a battery and it's just beeping. Goodbye.
Have hearts. Have hearts.